All right, back with another episode. Today's a really exciting day because I have probably one of the brand partners, friends, people that I enjoy having on the most in so many ways. Enjoy getting to chat with the most because anytime I get to chat with him, we're kind of in the shit most of the time, which is fun. And he preaches a message. I said this to some folks throughout this podcast, the last few episodes, that is very similar to mine. And we're actually more intertwined than I think even he thinks in so many ways, or has thought of. Now, first I want to thank the sponsors, www.johnbartoloshow.com. Head over there, check out the sponsors. We got Kenzies Optics, we got Henry Rifles. There's so many great sponsors that have helped the show. I want to thank AmpSmart. They're giving away a free home security system, so to everyone that's pissing and moaning, that wants cameras, that wants all kinds of security, head over to AmpSmart. They're giving away a security system. Check them out. And be sure and check out Sorinex, because today's guest is Bert Sorin himself. What's going on, brother?
How you doing, John? What's happening, man? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, so the thing is, I was saying this to somebody the other day. Part of me starting the podcast and part of me getting into this and this message was to merge a lot of worlds and to bring worlds together and create conversation. And I had Rachel on a couple days back, and we were talking about this, and she goes, "You sound so much like Bert." And I said, well, here's the thing. I said, the shooting industry and fitness and all these different worlds kind of collide in a self-defense melting pot, so to speak. So I said one of the missions that I've had for a really long time was to bring all these worlds together and create conversation, create dialogue, create a situation of readiness. And we were offline, and I said to her, she goes, well, like, tell me how you view it. And I said, I look at it like layers. When you work out, it's one layer. When you treat your body right and you put good nutrition, it's one layer. And we really got into it, and she goes, you sound so much like Bert. Bert would explain it the same. And I said, it's funny. I said, he and I are very intertwined in our thought process. And I said, sometimes I'm critical of Bert because he's doing all kinds of crazy shit down there. And he's like, he's got the ADD going. I said, I'm a little slower. I said, he goes in 100 directions, but he has the same end goal, and that's to bring all these worlds together. So I thank you for that right off the bat. And
thanks. Thanks, John. Yeah, I understand what you're saying for sure, and to dive right into that. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, a successful life is to be able to bring all of your passions together, have them feed one another, and have them feed the people who have the same passions. And then when you can connect all that, you kind of build this like social vortex that everyone gets to go on the ride, right?
It's a fun ride, and it's something that you get to bring all these different people and thought processes into. And for me, if somebody was to ask me after really doing 250 podcasts or whatever it is I've done, I would probably say Bert's probably as close to the thought process as I am, out there in the marketplace. And there's some others, Tony, there's some others that are along those lines. Tony's more the instrument than anything, but
Tony is a blunt force object, and surgical. That's what makes him terrifying. He's terrifying. He's a whole different animal.
Terrifying. And it's one of those things that it's been a lot of fun. Now, as Corona hits, and we've talked Sorinex before, but take everybody through that hasn't heard your story before of Sorinex, the elevator story of how you got to where you are. And now we're in this COVID period where people care about pretty much guns, germs, and steel right now. So we're back in the evolutionary chain. But take everybody through to where we are today and just how busy it's been.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been like it's just been like a perpetually accelerating wheel. We've been around for 40 years. My father, Richard Sorin, started Sorinex. Actually, it was Sorin Equipment in our carport in 1980. He was a school teacher and been a weightlifter and everything since he was a little, a school teacher since he got out of college, but a weightlifter forever. So the human performance and physical strength world has always been something that has been heavily seeped into our culture in our family. So he started Sorin Equipment, and very small, literally hand-to-mouth mom and pop stuff. And 20 years into it, I came on as really his helper, and that was in 1999, right out of college. And we just kept our finger on the pulse of what the strength training world was doing, the human performance world was doing, and along the way we were able to shift the course of that through some different designs and innovations, whether it be, the rig system as we know it now is something I drew up on a napkin having a couple drinks one night. It's the landmine is one of our things that was to help me train for the 2000 Olympic trials. So there's been a lot of things that we've done. Thankfully, we've been in the right place at the right time, like a little like Forrest Gump-like. But a lot of it has all been driven off of passion. You do what you think about, and you think about what's in your heart. And if strength and performance has always been in our heart, that time when you're sleeping and you're almost awake and your mind is in that flow state, that's when a lot of these ideas come to us. And I don't mean to make it sound mystical, but if it's in you, that's what you're always thinking about. And so a lot of that has just been driven by pure passion. So fast forward, today we have close to 200 employees doing probably got a weight room or some sort of weightlifting equipment for 100% in the NFL right now, hundreds of college teams, elite military operations. And we've been kind of coined the go-to guys for the go-to guys.
It's amazing how the ball just kind of bounces in life and how you end up where you are. And people always say, I had this planned all along. You didn't, you know what I mean? It's been serendipitous for you because you've had a series of life events that led to the point you're at, because there's no way you could have envisioned this, because I didn't. Even in my own life, I took a lot of chances. I did a lot of gambles. And I think, when you go into the family business, it's almost harder because your dad was a little bit of a legend. He was carving his own space. Oh, yeah. And then you come along and you 10X it. How do you get that mindset to do that? And how does that even, because a lot of people, you almost have to tell your dad's story to an extent now because you've done so well carving your own space.
Well, thank you. We've done well, but my story is impossible without his story, right?
Right.
And I could maybe take a path and turn it into a 10-lane highway, but without that path, we would still be in the woods, right? He had to go out there with a machete and break that path when really in the industry wasn't driven towards human performance style training. You look at early 80s, that was Nautilus, bodybuilding, the heavy, heavy lifting and power cleans and speed oriented stuff, and it just being powerful wasn't that much in vogue. So for him to have to break that path, not only economically and start a business when he was a school teacher and didn't really know what he was doing, to actually changing the industry as he did it as a mom and pop with no outside money coming in, no equity firms buying up any, and literally doing out of his own pocket, is actually incredible. The more I look at it. And
unheard of today.
Unheard of. And I didn't understand how crazy it was until now that I'm older and understand why it took so long to be successful. What they say, you can get to England in a rowboat, but it just takes you a while. Like, it's doable. It's just a lot to do. Thankfully, I didn't know enough that there was a faster way. And neither did, so we just kind of kept going. Again, going back to the passion. If it's what you love to do, you'll show up every day and do it. And then you look 40 years later, and all of a sudden you're in a pretty good spot, and everyone goes, "Wow, that's amazing! It's overnight success." Like, yeah, in 4 decades, it's crazy how that works.
It's funny because people thought, myself, Tony, some of us were crazy when we started bringing fitness and shooting and all these different things together. I had to listen to, you're just trying to be a shooter. You're trying to do this. You're trying to do that.
Sure.
You're trying to be everything but what you're actually trying to do, right? What the end game is. And
hold on a sec. I got a little guy. Okay,
no,
buddy,
it's good.
Daddy's on the show. Daddy's on the show. You go back in.
Wait.
Yeah, we will work out later, buddy. Okay, Daddy's working right now. Okay, you go back. All right, hold on just a second. Let me close the door.
See, this is the real deal of what happens in the Bert Sorin household.
Right.
The kids come in,
hey, and look, you could be on the show real quick.
There he is.
All right, you got to go. Here's your tackle box. Let's go back to the house. Hold on just a second. All right, Coach, come on, Daddy's at work.
It doesn't get realer than this.
That's exactly. All right, I love you, buddy. Bye.
It doesn't get realer.
Well, so that's actually how it works.
Yeah, and that's amazing that he's like, we got to work out. So, you get...
He turned 4 this week, so we already got him in the Sorinex frame of mind.
That's perfect.
He has his tackle box, and he wants to work out.
And he's already fishing, working out, the whole nine.
Yeah.
But you eat a lot of, what and I want to say, because the little guys are, you eat a lot of what along the way of this journey, because people are like, what the hell are you doing? But we were talking about this a little offline. You're starting to mesh all these human performance worlds. And like you said, I still came up, Bert, same as you, where it was powerlifting and it was bodybuilding. Like that was really the only two genres. That was all that you had. Human performance hadn't come into it yet. When I met Tony, that's when some of it started to come together. And when I started getting into jiu-jitsu and other martial arts, that's when I started to look at my body differently. I started to train differently. And, here I am years later into the journey of martial arts. I start to understand human performance better, how the body works, mechanics, physiology, because you learn it great on the mats. But the reality is I've been blessed because I've had the luxury of training with all these different people and putting my money where my mouth is to go out and actually learn it, albeit not the best instrument. There's others that are way better. But having the ability to go through that just like you have, but along the way shape my theories, form my theories. And people thought I was crazy in the beginning. Saying these were all intertwined. And you've been right there along the way, building your tactical Disneyland, building out all these things, and building out all these different movements. Did you deal with some of the similar things?
I still do every day. I mean, at first it was a little bit of external questioning, and there's been internal questioning within the company, whether it's employees or folks who what are we doing? We're doing gun stuff now, and it's okay, because I have to understand if you're leading or if you are doing something cutting edge, you are the data. And I've had people say that for years, like, we innovate a new piece of training equipment. They go, well, what's the data to support this? Where's something from the NSCA or a double-blind study that tells us? I said, here's the thing. If you literally are being cutting edge, you are the data. So you're working without a net. You're the tip of the spear. So I'm not the first person to combine those two things. I guess it's probably it's part of being Richard Sorin's son, first of all, and second of all, so being a kid of the '80s that grew up watching Rambo and movies like that. And I always thought being big, strong, functional, self-sufficient, all sounded like a great idea. My favorite movie is Red Dawn. I mean,
Wolverine.
Yeah, right. And so, I guess part of the success is I now could just do all the things I wanted to do when I was 5, which was play in the woods, go chase stuff, hide from stuff, be big and strong, eat what I wanted to eat, and just be better. And thankfully, Sorinex, we built a lifestyle that's turned into a brand, that's turned into something that is a self-sufficient monster.
And it's crazy because a lot of people have reached out to me since this has happened, and I'm sure you've dealt with this. And they've been family members, and even and they're like, you have to love this. And I'm like, I don't love this, because this isn't the goal, what the country's going through, this COVID, this pandemic, we've seen a run on gym equipment, a run on guns, literally a run on everything that we're passionate about. And I'm like, these are the things you prepare for that you hope never come.
Right. This isn't a, hey, I told you so moment. We've been prepared for these things, but you're like, crap. I really wish we didn't have to go through. I'm glad that I prepared for this, and who knew that the gym equipment world would.
I don't.
Yeah. So that's it's nice, but honestly, it's a pain because we're having to work double and triple time with a reduced staff to try to keep up with the needs. Not that we need the sales right now, but I don't want people to go without training equipment and trying to help them out.
Yeah, it's literally a very trying time for everybody. Everybody's instantly had to shift their life. But I think what has come out of it that people like yourself and even me to an extent, but I would definitely say folks like you, probably Cam, probably a lot of people out there have preached for a long time is you have to be more capable. You have to be more of an instrument capable of doing the day-to-day and being able to function without all the benefits. Like you have people having a meltdown, Bert, because they can't get their Starbucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just like what, I think this reset in many ways can be a great thing for a lot of people.
I 100% agree with you, John. It's going to be a painful reset, but I think it's going to be something that brings people back to a self-sufficient nature, and they can start going up the supply chain and knowing how to do things for themselves, and also trying to, I won't say game the system, but realize that there's other ways to solve the problem that is over and above the obvious. For instance, there's a toilet paper shortage. Okay, well then the first week I bought a bidet. Not a big deal, but hey, let's be honest. $150 into it, there's no toilet paper shortage in my house.
Right.
And everyone, there's, oh my gosh, we can't get meat. Well, I have freezers full of meat because I hunt. Well, again, that's going to be done at some point. So a couple of weeks ago, I bought a burger, a grinder, a couple $100, but if it's meat, I could put it in there and make burger. And so you start looking at what are ways that we could be self-sufficient. That is, if this thing really lasts for a long time, how, my next door neighbor, we've gotten together and made a garden. I'm buying a whole bunch of dirt today. I told him he buys the plants, I'll buy the dirt. And, maybe it's a thing that'll work, maybe it won't, maybe we won't need it. Hopefully, a couple of weeks from now, we won't need it. But taking those steps and learning the process. I'm not a gardener. I don't know about it. This is an awesome time for me to learn a new skill. And guess what? If everything goes back to normal, I'll have a cool garden. And if not, I'll have something to eat.
And I think somebody, to be a little, cunty, said this to me. They said, yeah, I'm going to use that word.
No one's ever done that.
So someone said this to me. They said, well, what do you want to come out of this? You know what I mean? And I said, let me take a crack at that. I would love to see most people adopt that mindset like you. And a lot of people say, well, that's easy because you have money or you have resources or you have this or you have that. I say, look, I'm a kid who grew up in East Boston, Mass with, not a million resources. I built it up as much as I could, went to school, learned. Along the way, you have to look at things as always. I always had a side hustle. You know what I mean? You always have something off to the side that you're working. You have to have these avenues, whatever it is, that can sustain you. And since I've been home, one of my goals, like somebody said, what are you going to do now? I said, I'm going to do 30 podcasts in 30 days. And everybody was like, oh, I said, that's one of my goals while I'm sitting home so I can be productive. I can put content out there. I can have conversations. And I got off and running. And I hope that a lot of people, Bert, will take the steps to do some things that make them a little bit more self-sufficient, whether it's starting to think in terms of the mindset of having 30 days worth of food and resources, whether it's having 30 extra days of savings, you know what I mean? Whatever that is. And I know I'm not insensitive. A lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people do.
100%.
Including you at times during the dry times, I'm sure.
No question.
No question. No question.
Yeah.
And
why do you think I got good at hunting and fishing?
Exactly. So you try to stay self-sufficient, but I hope everybody just ratchets it up a click. If you have to make your own coffee at home, so be it. If you go out and buy a generator that you thought about buying, great. Which leads me to the firearms conversation. We've had literally, some people say it's 3 million, some people say it's 4 million. The NICS check said 3 million. Background check, 3 million plus background checks. A lot of people took this opportunity to go out and buy a firearm that had it in the past, and that sparked a huge firearm debate. So, coming out of this, I'm hoping, that a lot of people look at this. Now, we have our own problems internally in the industry, just as the fitness industry does, and just as every industry does. In the fitness industry, a lot of people are codependent on gyms. And I know for a long time you've preached the functional workout, the home workout, doing those types of things. How has that evolved your business? And I'll get into the firearms issues, the problems, but how has that evolved your business? Because I know now you're launching a new product.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, we make our money on selling large installations to colleges, pro teams, and elite military units. That's the majority of what Sorinex thrives on. We've done home gyms. You've seen Cameron Haynes' gym. You've seen a lot of other people's gym, and normal people. We've done that for years. I didn't have a home gym until probably 6 or 7 years ago, because I always had a training space and a more of a public gym where I went. I noticed as my life got busier, a home gym was very valuable because I was able to take maybe 1 to 3 sessions a week that I just would not have gotten, because I'm a business owner, a father, a husband. I have other things to do. If I could get 30 minutes in the gym at my house, that's better than nothing. And if I had to ride to the gym and back, those 15 to 20 minutes, I'm already at a wash, right? So, yes, been preaching that, but what we've obviously seen is the home gym community realizes they're all smiling, going, "Oh, we've had home gyms. Good for them. They were early adopters." But everyone else, I'm getting blown up constantly that they need gear, and I get it. And unfortunately, the demand is so high right now that I can't keep up. So we've had to shift some of our offerings, and then that brings in, about a week ago, we came up with the off-grid rack you're probably alluding to. And the off-grid rack was very simple, and I've talked about it before. It wasn't anything amazingly, was it innovative? Sure, it was a new solution, but the idea was inexpensive to make sure people don't have to break the bank, because funds are tight right now. We could hopefully do it very fast, cut out as much manual labor as possible because we have a reduced workforce, get them to the shop and get them out the door. So the idea was build a rack that they could do those things. Sometimes things just work out. You know, it was about a 10-minute drawing, about an hour of mechanical drawing, and we had one up the next day. 10 days later, we launched it. It's been very popular, and then we said, well, if we're going to do this, I'm not trying to profit off of people's, bad times. So for the first couple weeks, let's give all the profits away to COVID and make sure that we're doing our part. And then people, by buying these things, they're in fact donating to how to solve the problem. So that's kind of the off-grid system, and we've been very successful with it. Hopefully it's helping people out.
I think it was Pat McNamara using it, and I was like, this thing is like the Glock of home gyms, because I'm like, it's simple, it's no frills, there's not a lot into it. I think Pat drilled it into the side of his fucking house, but that's Pat, you know what I mean?
But that's Pat, though.
You know what I mean? He just said fuck it and threw some 1-foot screws in there. But if you know him and his personality, he just wanted to get something up and just get to work. And that's what I loved about it. It was a no frills setup, and people, just so people know, behind the scenes, we've worked on projects before, and I've seen the diligence that you put into them, and the time and the effort and the energy. And it's not easy to try to be in a business that people get frantic about not being able to train. People get crazy.
I do. I hate to say it. I have access to a lot of equipment, but I just don't have access to a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And yesterday I was hurting. I was this. My back was kind of jacked up. I was stressed out. I just was getting in this mood, and my wife's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Wait a second. I haven't trained in 3 days." And so I give me about an hour. I went out to the cave and just moved around, moved slowly, just did some things, kind of nursed my back. But I felt immediately better, and so I agree. If there's people that haven't trained for 2 or 3 weeks, stay away from those people, because I get it, and
totally.
I get it. It's a hormonal thing. It's a mood thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's physical. It's mental. It's all these things. And I think people can't understate how important that is.
Yeah, it's important to keep your routines, and people have had to reevaluate their routines. But in the gym world and in the gym culture, I mean, this is a tough year. And I'll get to firearms, but this is a tough year for that culture. We lost the Arnolds. There was no Arnold show. We didn't have the ability to have that platform. And that's always a huge show, in many ways bigger than Olympia is.
Right. And which was a great call that they shut it down. I mean, great call on Arnold for that, because that could have been an absolute mess. Because it would have been perfect timing, and it would have decimated Columbus, but it would have decimated people all over the world, because there's so many people there, right?
Yeah. He got out in front of it. I think, some of his political chops as being a former governor were able to play into that, and he was able to understand the importance, and he didn't let the greed kick in. And so on and so forth. But the gym industry is one that's going to go through an evolution because of this. And
Yes.
I think the evolution, and you can speak on it better, is going to be more self-sustaining, the home workout, maybe doing things that are more functional, and understanding the importance of getting it in, like you're saying, and having the ability to get it in now because you're home. And if you maybe didn't want to take that 20-minute gym ride, you have the resources right there to get the workout in. But correct me, I mean, tell me what you're thinking.
You're 100%. I think it ties in a couple ways, kind of what we were talking about, that self-sufficiency at the beginning. The training now, I think, is going to gear itself a little bit more to functional, and I don't like to use the term functional because for the last 20 years that's meant something else in the fitness world. But actual function of, is it making you a better machine to go do things that you can survive? And that's organic movements, that's some power production, that's force absorption, that's throwing, lifting, doing all types of things. You know, as a hunter, there's a certain amount of physicality that's needed. You know, it was one thing sitting in a deer stand in Iowa for a long time, and there's one thing doing like what a Cameron Haynes or John Dudley does. They're two different things. But all of that being said, there is a certain amount of physical fitness that's needed to be functional.
Right.
So I think that, and like you're probably looking at some rash right there from jiu-jitsu, but that's the thing too. You know, from a defense standpoint, being more functional. Hey, if things really, really go bad in this country, defense is going to be a great thing to know how to do. I hate to say it, and that goes past any kind of firearms or anything like that. You know, you always got these two.
Yeah.
And
well, I can't strike to save my life. Everybody knows this, but it's one area that I've never, as funny as it is, because it's a crazy story, because I was saying this to somebody the other day, and I'm going to get to the firearms industry, because my uncle was actually the only active service member to ever hold a boxing world championship, and I can't throw a punch to save my life. He was a featherweight champion. He actually lost the belt to a guy named Willie Pep, who went on to become who he was. So that's odd enough. But the funny thing is, as much as the fitness industry has gone through an evolution, the gun industry, Bert, and you may not know this, is going to be going through a crazy evolution.
I can imagine.
You know, I was talking about this, and I've been talking about this with a lot of key executives. There was a guy, and I'm going to read something to you, who was an executive at Knight's Armament, and I apologize, everyone. Once in a while, the internet does have a mind of its own. But we're going to do our best to get Bert back. I can't help it sometimes. Let's see if Bert can kick back on. We can get him back. Let's see. All right. Let's see if we can come back. Hopefully this gets Bert back. His internet may have froze. Maybe he's rebooting. In the meantime, again, everyone, thank you. I want to thank Sorinex. I want to thank, let's see if this gets him back. Here we go. You're back. Let's see.
Give me a sec. I'll hit you right back.
Okay.
Sorry.
We're trying to cue Bert back up. Hey, Bob. Give us a minute. We're trying to cue Bert back up. We're going to get this rolling again. Terrific. We're going to get Bert back up on the stream.
All right, we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, I literally had to stop my phone, shut off everything, restart everything.
Hey, it happens. It's happened with the best. So this is the technical difficulties that come up while you're on the way to dice, right?
Yeah, exactly. And my kids caught a turtle in the meantime, so they were smashing on the door trying to show me their turtle as
That's amazing.
Wi-Fi dropped. It was great.
So we'll get right into it. But I wanted to read this to you. I don't know if you heard it, but I'm going to read it to you, and this was from a Knights Armament employee. He said, seeing posts about welcoming new gun owners from the panic buy. Just because they ran out and bought a gun doesn't make them part of the tribe. That doesn't make them allies or reformed. There are people that A, didn't care either way, and just didn't own a gun before, or B, bought a gun to protect themselves from evil gun owners. AKA, if you can't beat them, join them. Nothing against them, but they are not the newfound piece of the puzzle to end the war on our rights. Now, I read this off to multiple people, and it infuriated me, Bert, because I know you've seen some of this. It speaks to this culture in the firearms industry. It's almost democratic. It's almost, and I said this to the person, I'm having them on the show Friday, by the way. I said this to the because I'm willing to give anybody the platform, but they may not want it. Because it's that mentality of using verbiage like tribe and you're not one of us. My theory is I don't care why you purchased the gym equipment. I don't care why you purchased the gun. If you're trying and you're making the effort, do we run somebody who's overweight out of the gym? Do we run somebody out of our culture because they don't fit our model of tribe? I don't understand that mentality. I never will. And I was stunned that it came from a Knights Armament employee. Stunned.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand someone being frustrated or having a feeling of like we were there first kind of deal. I get that. That's a human emotion. But there's also, if you're really trying to grow a culture, or like we used to talk about growing the sport of like in track and field, and you have to be welcome. You have to be welcoming to people, or at some point you're literally a hindrance to the movement, right? I mean, like you said, with someone in the gym, unless you're in shape, you're not allowed to go to the gym because you're not one of us. Well, then what the hell's the point of going to the gym to start with?
And to use verbiage like tribe and everything else, it's very secular. And to say like. Right. You know, if you want to come out and say, hey, I've taken a long time to sharpen these skills and to get to the point where I am in the fight, I would appreciate it if everyone else joined me, you know, at this level. Great.
Yeah, and if I could be of assistance, let me know. I'd love to help you. Here's the path I took. So I don't want to down that specific employee or that company. I know they do great work, but yeah, I would have probably said it differently.
And the person, I said, you're welcome to come on the show and explain your point, but I had, Tom Taylor from SIG, I had multiple people, I had Charlie Kirk the other day, and not a person agrees with this statement, and I'm like giving the person ample opportunity to back off from it, like, hey, listen, it was heat of the moment, I said, and, they tried to word it as if I was taking that out of context, and I said, well, if I'm taking it out of context, why is it when people commented underneath, yeah, these new gun owners are pathetic, you chose to like the comments?
It's an interesting one. Yeah.
But it speaks to the change we're going through post-COVID, and with this influx of potentially new home gym owners. Not every new home gym owner is going to go out and be Jay Cutler. Not every new home gym owner is going to go be Cam Haines. Not everyone's going to be David Goggins. You know what I mean? So you're going to have these people come in that they may be what we would call maybe some timers, not all the timers. But does that matter?
It doesn't. It doesn't, and that's the thing. Like, you even look at it. I don't get in internet arguments with people, but when I watch them, because sometimes I do the old popcorn and watch because it's semi-interesting. everyone tries to make their point, right? And then you hear people say, well, no one's ever won an argument on the internet. I agree. But here's the thing. If you continue to try to make your point, you're trying to convince someone to see your frame of reference or your point of view, thus change their behavior. So now if someone does change their behavior and they go from a non-gun owner to a gun owner, you're going to piss on them? Wait, I thought you wanted to convince them that this was the right thing to do, or convince them to start working out. You need to work out. What do you work out? You're not strong enough. You shouldn't work out. What? And I used to know a powerlifter that was very strong, and he called everyone but his gym a bunch of neophytes. That's what they called it. Meaning they're not worthy, or they're not. That's the worst thing that you could possibly say for a gym community. I get it. You're happy, you're proud, you're whatever. I get it. But when other people are trying to change their lives through doing something that you allegedly love, support them. Don't piss on them.
My thing, Bert, is simple. This is a time for bridge building, for non-secular activity, to not be bipartisan. This is a time right now, I know this is going to sound corny, even in life, this is a great time to pick up the phone and call an old friend maybe you haven't talked to. This is a time now to bring things together. There'll be a time, I believe in seasons, okay? Mm-hmm. So I guess the spiritual part of me believes in seasons, and I'm not that much of a spiritual guy, but I believe in seasons. There's a season to say to someone, hey, if you want to train hard, or if you want to get to this level, or if you want to participate in whatever industry at a higher level, this is what you need to consider, ... This is not the season to be secular. This is not the season to be bipartisan, to draw lines. And you're someone who's prided himself on eliminating a lot of lines. And I'm someone that's prided himself on eliminating a lot of lines. And I wanted to, kind of understand the mindset of these people that create these lines, whether it's in fitness or it's in shooting or it's in outdoors, because the hunting industry is about to go through something. There's going to be major decisions made as to whether or not we're going to even have a hunting season, and what that's going to look like and what that could look like. And that's scary to a lot of people. So I just kind of laugh at sometimes people who draw these lines, and I've seen it 100 times. We've seen it 100 times, whether it's in fitness. If you're not elite, you're this, you're that. If you're not in shooting, if you're not a pro shooter or special forces or this, we're all about lines, and I'm all for staying in your lane. But I think, and I was talking about this a little bit with Rachel as far as body movement goes and training, a lot of these lines, they just need to be sucked out of these industries. Like, it needs to stop. And it's one of those things that I've always looked to you as a little bit of guidance on it, because you're someone who's been great at being like, hey, I just want to get a bunch of cool people in a room and everybody just hang out. Like, cut the shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what you do. And to speak to your line statement, I totally agree. There are times for lines, for ranking, and for trash talking, and for strategy and all that. And that's when we've all decided we're going to compete against one another. I was a fierce competitor. And all that crap came out of the bag when we were ready to throw down. But I wasn't doing that to the beginner walking on the field.
Right.
The beginner, like, hey, man, I'm not trying to flex on you, dude. I'm trying to get you to my level so then we can go mix it up later. That sounds great. And I think people have to understand that more is to build the community that you love, you have to build it. And then if there's 10 dudes at the top that want to mix it up and go Rocky style, then start slugging. But everyone knows the rules at that point. And otherwise, let everyone do their thing. If SEALs want to make fun of CAG guys and MARSOC guys, they're all in the club. They can do it all they want.
Yeah, and that's where the lane comes in. Like,
exactly.
You know a bit of my history. I've had the luxury of training with a lot of high-profile people. Sure. There's not a question about that. You've had the luxury of training and being around a lot of high-profile people. When you get to the elite of the elite levels, a lot of those guys are so encouraging. There's a time to get competitive. Are there times where I've trained with Branch or Jay or this one where we get a little competitive and we do certain things, or you ride each other's ass? Sure. Now, whether or not you want to take that beyond and put statements out there, like as a company or as a brand or as even as an individual associated with it. And it's kind of interesting to me because you're someone to have this conversation with, because we've worked so hard to eliminate lines, and I think too many people get caught up in this. Well, I'm this and I'm that. And I used to tell everybody, everywhere I've ever worked, every brand I've ever consulted with, and there's a list. It's a mile long. I've always said, anytime you go to a show, anytime you go anywhere, everybody's somebody, just ask them. I used to say that to every employee, everywhere I've ever worked. And they say, well, what do you mean, boss? And I used to say, well, listen, when you go to these shows, you go to these events, everybody you're going to talk to is important. They're going to tell you how important they are. Everybody's great. And that's great. But at the same time, just be a human once in a while, eliminate some of these lines. And I hate to see it, but that's some of the issues we deal in the gun industry. And Charlie Kirk said it best. He goes, if that's the stuff that's being said by employees inside the gun industry, then the gun industry needs to get its act together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's, Michael Bacalari from Leopold.
Buck. I know the name.
Yeah. So Buck had a really interesting way he phrased it at one point, and he said, listen, he said that he goes the argument is this. He said, you ask an anti-gunner, someone that's against guns, why are you against guns? And they said, because I don't want to get shot by a crazy person and I want to protect my family, right? Mm-hmm. You ask someone that's pro-guns, why do you want to carry a gun? And they say, because I don't want to get shot by a crazy person, I want to protect my family. Both sides want the same thing. They just have two different points of view of how to achieve that. And that's where the conversation comes in. We don't need to crap talk each other. We just go, oh, you're not absolutely insane. You don't want to get killed and you want to protect your family. Cool. I view the best way to do it is this. You view it a different way. Let's have a conversation.
And part of it is having an adult debate. And part of the reason I started this podcast was to start to unearth a lot of these difficult conversations and start to have it, because we're not going to move forward if we're just posting a picture on Instagram and showing how fast we shoot and how cool we are. Right, it's never going to move forward. Oh, everyone's got the cooler camo. Everybody's got great. But how do we move the conversation forward? That stuff needs to die. Okay? Yes. I don't care. I'm going to go on record and say, I don't care if somebody goes out and buys a firearm and says, you know what, I'm buying this. Let's pick on a female for a second. I'm buying this because I'm in an abusive relationship and I feel I need to protect myself. And they maybe just don't know about training, or they don't know about all those things. But maybe they went to the range and they shot a little bit. Okay, we'll give them that. Most people do that. That's a fair statement. Mm-hmm. That's a fair assessment. Great. Okay, but they chose to own it and they chose to participate and they choose to exercise their right as a Second Amendment supporter. What is the definition? Does that person not fit in the definition of your tribe? Does that person not? It's almost laughable. So, the question I ask, and the reason the conversation infuriates me is when I first started introducing fitness into shooting, and Tony and I and Pat were some of the first kind of guys really pushing that. Pat especially.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah.
Someone said to me once, a holster manufacturer, they said, what's with all these bodybuilders getting into shooting? And I said, if they went to buy a holster, would you send them their money back? And he was like, well, I'm not saying that. And he blocked me on everything. And I said, this is the fucking state of our industry in 2020.
Sure.
It was 2018 or 17 then. But, and you see that even in the gym culture. And I'm hoping now, by people having the opportunity not just to train at home, but whether you're panicked and you go out and buy 30 rolls of toilet paper, which I think is dumb, but okay, because how much are you shitting? But or you go out and you choose,
better be huge because you're eating a lot.
Yeah, or you choose to support the Second Amendment. I welcome you with open arms, and any resource I can give you, any way that I can help. It's like when I pick up the phone and call you and I say, Bert, I'm in the garage. Fuck, I'll pay can I get something? Send me, and you're like, well, what can I do? How can I help? Not, hey, John, not what Jay would say. Hey, John, you're a fat shit, go run 10 miles. But you know what I'm saying? Support. And what can I do? And
it's crazy. The more that you give, it's a biblical principle. It comes back, your blessings come back more than you could actually, you can't even hold them. Your cup will runneth over. It's crazy. Not to get crazy biblical, but it's a real thing. And downing people only brings you down as well. It's absolutely crazy. I've noticed the more I try to help people, whether it be hardware, application, reaching out, calling someone, my life continues to get better and better and better. I have more and more resources to then put back into the system, and then it's a perpetual wheel that just gets larger and larger. You know it too.
Yeah, I always say this: the wheel spins round, Bert. That's the line I use. The wheel spins round. And you take care of those that take care of you, and there's people out there that are supportive. And I look at people that tend to be divisive with this, and I said this to Ray Kashkar because he flipped the script on me, and he asked me once, because we were talking about circle and how people fit in your circle, and he said, you know, how do you choose someone? And I said, Ray and I go back a while, so he gets me. I said, it's all about bridge building. If you're not a bridge builder and you're a bridge destroyer, I can't have you in my life.
Yeah.
I'm at a point in my life where sometimes things don't work out. And I've had a lot of things in my life not work out. I think you know that. I've had some stuff not work out. And I just look at it as, hey, it didn't work out. That's what I have to say about it. The situation didn't work out. I've moved on. We're moving on. I'm going to the next thing. Whether you choose to move on to the next thing with me, great. If you don't, great, more power to you, but you have to turn the page and you have to move forward. And if you don't support moving forward and turning the page, you'd be hard pressed to find me to say something that burns a bridge to cinders. I don't like to do that. It's not in my nature. I'm just like, hey, didn't work out. It's not working out.
Right, because none of us are innocent, right? None of us have never screwed up. And that's where it can't be a linear thing. It's like, well, this guy did this and I did this, and so that can never come back. So, hey, I choose not to work with you or talk to you or do whatever right now because of some things. But maybe 5 years from now, things are changed. You'll change. I'll change. We'll both be better. The chemistry's better, and then we can reevaluate it. I agree with you 100%, John. I don't have time in this short life to invest my most valuable commodity, which is time and energy, into poison. Can't do it, won't do it, and I'm going to pretty savagely just chop those things off, maybe for a season, maybe forever, that add that to my life. I have way too many good things to poison it with negativity.
Well, and I think it comes down to, Bert, too, life moves too fast. I'm not Irish enough to burn bridges like that. I'm not, the Irish hold grudges. To me, I hold certain things, like you can hold a certain opinion or you can look at something from afar and have an opinion, but I'm not one to be like, take this staunch stance on something and say, well, this, or I feel that, because sooner or later everybody's going to go through something. And I'm saying that in regards to maybe this person's going through something and you give them a chance to backpedal. Here's my thing. I might put something out there, you may put something out there, people don't agree with them, and we do it all the time. But if you qualify your remarks, you clarify them, and they make sense on a certain level, you're like, okay, that's his stance. There's a difference between having a stance in an informed debate and having an opinion that burns a bridge and you're willing to say, I don't care what you think. Well, that's not having an informed debate. And I've learned through this podcast, especially in the firearms industry, because it's very slow on the uptake to getting to a certain point, that everybody's gotten by on just Instagram, being able to just post a picture. And the big equalizer out there has been the ability to add audio and video like we're doing now. And you see people that they can't do it. They can't, they get on and they wilt. And that's why, it's one of those situations in this industry that I think this Corvid is going to change, because this is going to be the medium for a while. Because even if it stopped tomorrow, Bert, people aren't going to, and I had this conversation with a very high profile person in the firearms. He said, if all this stopped tomorrow, John, how quick are you going to be to go to the mall? How quick are you going to be to go to a Red Sox game? How quick are you going to be to go, people are going to acclimate very slowly after this. And I think home gyms, shooting, because it puts you out on the range, even golf, certain things that keep you, a little away and apart from folks, hunting, they're going to become the norm, Bert. And a lot of people are going to be communicating this way.
Right. I think a lot more people are going to have some great conversations with their family around the fire, and being outside. I think camping and even you look at from a physiological, scientific health standpoint, if you look at whether it's COVID or any other virus, it preys upon a weak immune system. And how can we boost our immune system? Exercise, vitamin D, i.e. the sun, eating organic foods with high vitamin content, fresh air. And so you look at it and you go, okay, all of this kind of drives towards that functional fitness lifestyle. Hey, what I've understood, again, I'm no scientist nor doctor, but if flattening the curve means just still everyone's going to still be exposed to COVID the same amount, we're just trying to flatten that out over a longer period of time, that means we're all still going to come in contact with it. And so I see it as, kind of like carrying a gun. You're going to be mugged or try to be assaulted sometime. Be ready for it. Yeah. And that's where I see the defense mechanism of, get your immune system, do all the right things. That's just as important as jiu-jitsu training, weight training, firearms training, and anything. If you're trying to save your life in an emergency, which coming in contact with a deadly virus very well could be, these all lend themselves to that. And I think you're going to see it more and more, people going outside and getting away from a computer or a TV or moving. And so I see it's going to suck for a while, but I see the general community of the world is going to start returning back to some things that are very fulfilling and healthy for us.
I think the biggest evolution is going to be people are going to start to adopt the mindset of one is none and two is one. Yeah. I absolutely believe, Bert, if one thing gets taken away from this, one is going to be none and two is going to be one.
Yeah, I was talking to my wife last night about it, and I tend, I wouldn't say to be a pack rat, but I've kind of had that mentality my whole life. It's like, well, if we're getting propane tanks, let's get 3 extras because, A, I don't like having to go find a new propane tank if I want my grill to go, but B, like, hey, I'm going to use it, right? Like, if I could afford it and if I have it and I could find it on a deal, I stock those things. So, man, the minimalist lifestyle people right now are probably going, crap, I shouldn't have got rid of those extra things to save some space.
And everybody's going to be buying a second fridge, and everybody's going to have a third freezer, or potentially like I'm looking right now. I'm actually going to go to Home Depot. I'm going to buy a griddle for outside because I want to know the truth. Somebody posted a video of them making bacon and eggs outside, and I was like, damn, I want to do this so bad.
Oh, it's fantastic! I did it earlier this week. So yeah, cast iron pan over the fire. Bacon, go first, pull it out, use the oil, the bacon, eggs, right? It's amazing. There's ashes and stuff in there, but it was fantastic. My kids loved it. It was great. It was sunlight,
Oh, I'm all about it.
It's hard to beat, man.
I'm all about it. And, I'm super excited about what good can come out of this, and I think that's the right light to look at it. I want to ask you, and take your time answering, how do you see this playing out? It's now, April 9th. How do you see this playing out in Bert Sorin's mind of the last, 15 days? How do you see this playing out?
Wow, you're going to really put me on the spot. Let me preface this with, these are the feelings of Bert Sorin. These don't anything to do with Sorinex or whatever, but I think this is obviously a very serious virus going around. I don't personally think it's worth gambling the entire country and world's structural economy, Western world's economy on it. I think that will lead to more bad times. I think people much smarter than me, I think there's a way to maybe break up the people who are most susceptible to having a really bad time of this, making sure they're taken care of, whether it be quarantine or different type of services given to them. But I believe the American people need to get back to work sooner than later. And I think we are all more educated on how this thing shakes out and how do people get COVID. If it's wearing gloves or wearing a mask or whatever it is, take the proper precautions. But there's other ways that we can keep the economy going because that is the structural backbone of this country. And that's what we're doing. Sorinex, we're deemed essential by the Department of Defense right now because of our defense contracts that we have. So we've been extremely blessed that we haven't slowed down at all. I mean, barring any of the home gym stuff, if it wasn't for the home gym stuff, we would still be at full tilt capacity. Now, we've had some people that have been out. No one has become positive COVID. Thank God. a couple of people have been sick. Our policy is if you've been sick, you need a doctor's note and a testing to get back to work. Other than that, we're going to practice social distancing. We're in an open air shop. Guys are wearing welding gloves, so everyone's been safe, and everyone knows the stakes. They know if they want to have a good, safe place to work, that they need to do their part. And I think just educating the populace is a good thing. I think, some people say what we're doing is risky, but I know there's almost a couple hundred people there that I'm getting texts and emails from nightly saying, hey, thanks for setting up Sorinex in a way that we still have a place to work, because my family actually gets to put food on our table and we're eating and we're staying healthy. So I believe we're doing the right thing. I hope that more companies can do that sooner than later. That's how I see it.
From a brand perspective, excuse me, I got the hiccups. From a brand perspective, one of the beautiful things about the firearms industry is a lot of brands instantly shift to that. And we go through this cyclical sales culture very heavily, especially in the summer. They shift to a voluntary, you want to come in, you can kind of set your own. They kind of all get in a room, because most of these manufacturers and these shops, they're able to do that. And they say, like, I know a very large holster company. They said, hey, you want to work 2 days a week? You want to work 3? We'll work with you on this. You know what I mean? Work with us, we'll work with you. So everybody has the ability to still work, put food on their table, as you're saying, from a brand perspective. From a John perspective, I've said this, and I don't have to go through the list of my friends. I've said it all the way up the chain. At some point in this journey, the cure starts to become worse than the disease.
100%.
So you have to, like I said, 1 is none and 2 is 1. You have to start to think at some point the cure to this becomes worse than the disease. So you have to start to factor that in, both as a politician, as a medical professional, as everything in the equation. Now, no one is discounting. I think this is a giant wake-up call. I think the medical community, the WHO, everybody involved needs to start to ratchet up and understand that this can be a real problem. If this was something as serious as AIDS or anything else, it could be a very serious thing. We lost, I believe it was more people to SARS so far. I don't know that in the time frame, but overall so far still. At some point in all this, and I agree with flattening the curve, and what scares people about this, and I'm not discounting it, is the ease that it spreads. That's the fear, is it spreads very easily, and I'm 100% with that. You have to remember, I'm speaking from the bully pulpit of a guy that gets to work his own schedule, pretty much work from home. I've always been, a consultant to a degree, but at the same time, I have to factor in the world economy, the effects on it, and I see a lot of people compare, we can stay home another 30 days. We can say, look at what New Zealand's doing, look at what this is doing, look at that. And I try to explain to people, New Zealand's economy is about the size of Colorado. Right. So you can't compare. The comparison is very different.
And the complexity and everything, it's just like writing a workout for a person. You have to evaluate their specific situation on the front end to give a good prescription.
Yeah.
And I think the prescription of the U.S. is significantly different than any other country out there. Our government is different, our economy is different, our populace is different, our mindset is different. I'm not saying I have the answer, but I don't think taking a model of Italy or New Zealand or anywhere, it won't work here.
No, you're absolutely right. You have to remember where the United States economy fits. And I put someone in perspective by saying this the other day. I said to someone, family members, people call me and we get into these debates. And I said, think of it like this. Just put yourself in this mindset. If California was its own country, it would have the 5th largest economy in the world.
Right.
So think about that for a second. Shutting down states that represent potentially 2 or 3 of our states, New York included, Chicago, represent 3 of the top 10 economies in the world. Shutting them down could have a cataclysmic domino effect. Now, that takes the medicine side of it out of the equation. Now, you have to factor all these things. Now, I'm no expert. Just a guy here with a microphone. You can disagree with me all day.
I'm a guy in the garage with a beard, man.
Exactly.
That's what it boils down to.
So, I think what you're doing is amazing. And I think what you've done is amazing. And I love rapping with you. And I think as time goes on, this reset is going to move people in the direction that you've been going. I think to you, to your brand partners, to the strategy that you've employed over time is going to come to fruition to a degree through this. So I applaud you for that. And Bert, from a distance, I've always admired the things that you've done and do. And if anything, I've always thought you had your hand in too much, trying to do too much. I'm like, this guy's shoulder's got to hurt. But it's amazing, you know.
As my wife says, she says, "Bert, Sorin, you run a big life," and that's it's a blessing and a curse, because I know I'm only here for a certain amount of time, and I want to make the biggest impact on the world around me as possible, and I want to have as many great experiences as possible, but unfortunately every once in a while I have to sleep.
Well, you're doing that, and some of the events that you put together and some of the things, let everybody know where they can find you, where they can look you up, and some of the events that you have going on, potentially coming up, that could come to pass.
Sure, well, I appreciate it, John. So we have an event called Summer Strong, and this will be our 13th year doing it. It's kind of, we pull the human performance world and the extraordinary people world together. We erase those lines. We might have a knife maker, a movement therapist, a football player, Navy SEAL, or whatever. A lot of just people that are living that fringe lifestyle that we look up to, and much like your Rolodex of folks, just extraordinary people. And so it's kind of like a TED Talk, a group therapy, it's all kinds of different things. But unfortunately, this week we had to postpone it for the first time in 13 years. It was going to be May 15th through 17th. Obviously, that's a pretty rough time to get about 500-600 people together. So we've postponed it till later in the summer. When that is, we don't really know. We're going to let this thing shake out a little while longer. See, I would say probably July or August. But that's our premier event. We do other events throughout the year. We did a Winter Strong event earlier, which did combine the outdoors world with the human performance world. And so that's kind of stuff we're doing. I mean, if you want to find me, I'm Bert Sorin, BertSorin on Instagram. Sorinex is our regular IG page. We have Sorinex Outdoors as well, so relatively easy to get a hold of. But it's really awesome that we're getting to talk about this stuff, because I know it's both passion. It's a passion project for both of us, combining all of these things and combining these people and getting to discuss what is happening in the world right now. And these are very current issues, and neither one of us are drawing lines saying this is what you have to do. This is the point of view for some guys that are seeing it, maybe from a right point of view. Maybe we'll see. We'll see how the world shakes out, and how time will tell, right?
Yeah, people will decide. And when I started the show, Bert, on my own, and I wanted to do something, I knew when I started it in my kitchen many moons ago that this had to be something all its own. And I wanted to meld worlds, and I knew people would look at me like I'm crazy. Like, why is he having MMA fighters on? Why is he having jiu-jitsu guys on? Why is he having this on? And in my head, you know, somewhere along the way, I kind of said a couple times, I said, what would Bert Sorin do? So, you know, it's like, but I looked at it, you know, from afar, and I say this to people all the time. People say, you know, the people in our Rolodexes and yours, they're not people I have to talk to every day. Like, you know, just to put it out there, you know, I talk to Bert here and there in pockets, and in pockets we'll exchange a text, but I know you're a phone call away, and that's how you operate. You know, it goes in waves. And when you work with people and you work closely with people, you're always watching from afar what they're doing, and you're paying attention, and you always pay attention to the great ones and the people out there. And one of the things I'm trying to blend, and have been trying to blend for a long time, is maybe the one step further I went, but I have the ability to do it with the show. It's a lot easier, is blend the political side into it too, so people have an understanding, you know, bringing in, you know, governors, congressmen, whoever, to speak on the matters, not so I can draw a line, but so people can understand what they're working on. I recently had the NSSF on. I'm working on getting the USCCA on. I've had the NRA on. You know, I've had multiple congressmen on. It's so people can have a conversation, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. I form an opinion. I had the NSSF on. I was hypercritical of them about what they're doing out there, and I had Larry on, and Larry took me to task. He said, here's what we're working on. I said, well, motherfucker, you got to get that shit out there. Everybody needs to know. And it was a good conversation. Larry's the man. And we were talking, and I said, I posed some tough questions to him. He posed some back to me, and he said, here's what we're working on. Here's what we're doing behind the scenes. I know our marketing doesn't reflect all that, but we need to get that stuff pushed out there. You're absolutely right. And sometimes it's about getting information out there. And I think through platforms like this is a great way to get people's viewpoints, get people's information. And I say these things, and I raise these questions, and I read off some of the things said in the community so people can understand that your words and what you do can sometimes affect people. And yes, you can always tune out. Yes, you can always unfollow. Yes, you can do whatever you want. This is America. You can do whatever you want. That's the way it is. But at the end of the day, I think it's right now the time we're in and the place we're in. I think what you're doing in particular, and I hope what I'm doing, but I think what you're doing is going to come to pass. You know what I'm saying? It's coming to its moment. And I think harnessing that and capturing that's going to be the hardest part in media and saying, here's what I've been preaching and putting those pieces out there. But I hope that you find a way to do it. I know your team, works tirelessly around you because you're a go guy.
Gosh, my team is fantastic. They're the ones that make us look good,
Absolutely.
So big props to those guys.
And I've had Brendan Lilly on. He's a great asset and a wild card, and I like Brendan a lot.
It's a good way to put it. He's a wild card.
Yeah, I've admired Brendan from afar, and I told him this. I said, you're one of those guys that's like, what do we do with this guy? But you're so multifaceted, and you can do so much that it's almost like, a little like me. It's almost like you got to give him room to run. And when you have great people like that, unicorns that can hit so many different notes, it's important to give them a little bit of a wide berth, let them be idea guys, let them be do guys, let them figure it out. And they can incorporate themselves in so many different ways. And sometimes it's great just to have a sounding board. And, I look at some of the great brands out there and some of the great partnerships and brands and, having good people around you that you can bounce ideas off of, work ideas, or even test tube ideas. It's trial and error. And what you've done for a long time, similar to me, I'm sure, we talked about it. You take the hits, but now I think it's going to all come to pass.
I appreciate it. And things are going well. I mean, the last 10 years have been better and better and better, and hopefully we'll weather this storm and continue to weather. We're weathering it now, but we have to make sure from a personal side that we're able to share if we're fortunate, maybe some of the decisions we made along the way, or just blessings that we have, that we share those with the industry and share those with our supporters and because this isn't a one-man show. This isn't like this world of Sorinex. If we could be effective and valuable to the world of strength and conditioning and also to the outdoors, then great. Then I believe we're a success, regardless of how much money we have or don't have.
Well, I'm going to put all your links down below in this podcast so people can check out Sorinex. They've been a friend to me for years from afar. I can't thank you enough, Bert. Your friendship and just your ability to always be there when I call has been not taken for granted, for sure. No doubt about that. And I look forward to what you have going on and how the future plays out. And we might have something more to talk about in a few months.
Oh, I would say so, and just thanks again for having me, John. I know your list of folks that you have are very and very distinguished. I'm honored to be a part of it.
I appreciate that, brother, always. And I'll put the links down below, and I appreciate all the sponsors, and I can't thank Sorinex enough. I really truly thank him, and for sure I'll make sure everyone checks out Sorinex and go visit Bert's personal page. He's got a lot of crazy stuff in there. And check out that garage, that ridiculous garage gym he has in the background there. Look at that thing. It's amazing. A lot of fun. I know Cam has a similar one and some of the guys, so I'm looking forward to it. And I can't take away from the sponsors. I want to thank everyone at www.johnbartoloshow.com, and I want to thank Amp Smart Home Security, and of course Bert. Thanks.
Thanks, John.